إني إذًا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالأرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشاء نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم انفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا ونطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يقسمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم. ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون. هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون. اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون. ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون. ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون. ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون. وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين. أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون. واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون. لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون. فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون. أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين. وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقا قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون. أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم. إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سورة الفاتحة. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد.
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات. فدا ہوں اس پہ سلامی ہے جس کا نام. فدا ہوں اس پہ سلامی ہے جس کا نام. حسین میرا موئی میرا آقا میرا امام. میرا موئی میرا آقا میرا امام. حسین صبا کو بھیج کے روزے پہ کر رہا ہوں دعا. صبا کو بھیج کے روزے پہ کر رہا ہوں دعا. کریں قبول الہی میرا سلام. کریں قبول الہی الہی میرا سلام، سنا نہائے کسی سنگ دل نے لاکھ کہا، سنا نہائے کسی سنگ دل نے لاکھ کہا، رسول کا ہوں نواسا ہے میرا نام، رسول کا ہوں نواسا ہے میرا نام، پناہ لیتے تھے دشمن اجل کے دامن میں، پناہ لیتے تھے دشمن اجل کے دامن میں، جو وار کرتے تھے لے کر علی کا نام، جو وار کرتے تھے لے کر علی کا نام، میں اپنے دل کو بہت پاک و صاف رکھتا ہوں، میں اپنے دل کو بہت پاک و صاف رکھتا ہوں، کہ شاید اس میں کسی دن کریں قیام، کہ شاید اس میں کسی دن کریں قیام، حسین فدا ہوں اس پہ، اللہم صلی اللہ
محمد وآل محمد، رن میں آ کر سکینہ پکاری، گھر چلو بھائی مہندی لگاؤں، بنے قاسم بہن تم پہ واری، گھر چلو بھائی مہندی لگانے، کیسی شادی قیامت یہ آئی، ہوئی دلہا دلہن میں جدائی، نیک اپنا میں لینے نہ پائی، نیک اپنا میں لینے نہ پائی، گھر چلو بھائی مہندی لگا، بھائی کیا جلد گھر سے سدھارے، رسم پورے ہوئے نہ ہمارے، منتظر ہیں باراتی تمہارے، منتظر ہے باراتی تمہارے، گھر چلو بھائی مہندی لگاؤں، جوڑا شادی کا تن میں نیا ہے، سو زخموں سے پرزے ہوا ہے، خون سب دست و پا میں لگا ہے، خون سب دست و پا میں لگا ہے، گھر چلو بھائی مہندی لگا، پر میں شادی کی رنگی خبا ہے، سر پہ پھولوں کا صحرا بندھا ہے، چاند سا منہ لہو میں بھرا ہے، چاند سا منہ لہو میں بھرا ہے، گھر چلو بھائی مہندی لگاؤں، رن میں آ کر سکینہ پکاری، گھر چلو بھائی مہندی لگاؤں،
محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
مومنین ایک سورہ فاتحہ کی درخواست ہے بانی مجلس، حاضرین مجلس اور وہ مومنین مرحومین جن کا فاتحہ پڑھنے والا کوئی نہیں ہے ان کو بھی شامل کر لیجیے. اللہم صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم. پکارتی ہے یہ بانو کہ رن میں جاؤ کوئی، خبر میرے علی اکبر کی رن سے لاؤ کوئی. جگر میں آگ لگی ہے ارے بجھاؤ کوئی. نجف سے حیدر کرار کو بلاؤ کوئی. شقین شکل رسول خدا مٹائی ہے میرے جگر کے پہ جگر پر ثنا لگائی ہے. درود بھیجو.
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
نرغا ہے دل برے حسن سبز پوش پر، چاروں طرف ہے تیروں کی بوچھاڑ جوش پر. دل پر سنا کا زخم ہے پہلو پہ دوش پر. سہرے کی سب کٹی ہوئی لڑیاں ہے دو، سہرے کی سب کٹی ہوئی لڑیاں ہے دو. تلوار رن میں دولہا کا منہ خون سے دھوتی ہے. خیمے میں غلیا دلہن بیوہ ہو، خیمے میں غلنا دلہن بیوہ ہو. سر کاٹنے ادھر سے بڑے فوج کے سوار دوڑے ادھر سے شاہ عالم لے کے ذوالفقار. تھے ساتھ ساتھ اکبر و عباس نامدار. وحشت سے 3 شیروں کی بھاگے ستم، وحشت سے 3 شیروں کی بھاگے ستم. مجروح نادوا کا عجب حال ہو گیا. گھوڑوں سے جسم دولہے کا پامال، گھوڑوں سے جسم دولہے کا پامال ہو گیا. رونے لگے امام امنگ دیکھ کر حال. لاشا اٹھا کے لے چلے آخر بسند مال. 1-2 قدم بڑا تھا رسول خدا کا لال. ہچکی جو آئی مر گیا ہے وہ خود، ہچکی جو آئی مر گیا ہے وہ خود. گودی میں شیکی پھول سے کملا کے رہ گئے. بازو لہو بھری ہوئی تھرا کے رہے، بازو لہو بھری ہوئی تھرا کے رہے. فضا نے دیکھا شے کو جو آتے ہوئے ادھر. خیمے کے سین سے یہ پکاری بچشمتر. سیدانیاں عروج سے ہوشیار باخبر. دیوڑی تک آئی مادر نوشان، دیوڑی تک آئی مادر نوشانو. فاخوں سے ہے نڈھال، قدم لڑ کھڑاتے ہیں. مسند بچھاؤ دولہا کو شبیر، مسند بچھاؤ دولہا کو شبیر، مسند بچھاؤ دولہا کو شبیر لاتے ہیں. حالات ہے غیر سے حالت ہے غم سے غیر شیخ خوش قصال کی ہے جوانی قاسم یوسف جمال کی پوشاکوں سے سرخ ہے اس نو نہال کی آؤ برا دیکھ لو شبر قلعہ آؤ برا دیکھ لو شبر قلعہ رونے کا شور چرخ پر جاتا ہے صاحبو دولہا چچا کی گود میں آتا ہے دولہا چچا کی گود میں آتا ہے صاحبو دوڑے حرم ادھر سے کھلے سر برے نہ پا خیمے میں آئے لاش لیے شاہ کربلا ناموس میں قیامت کبرا ہوئی بپا قاسمہ کی چرخ پہ جانے لگے قاسمہ کی چرخ پہ جانے لگے بہنیں قریب آ گئی آنسو بہانے کو پہلا ایمان ہاتھ گلے سے لگا پہلا ایمان ہاتھ گلے سے لگا خیمہ تک آئے سو حرم پاک نو اگر لاشا لٹا کے رونے لگے شاہ بیروبر عباس پیٹنے لگے ہاتھوں سے اپنا سر اکبر کے پاس رکھ دیا سر اکبر کے پاس رکھ دیا سہرا لہو تعمیر حال مادر غمناک ہو گیا سینے کے زخم دیکھ کے دل چاک ہو سینے کے زخم دیکھ کے دل چاک ہو گیا فضا نے باندھا حجرے کا پردہ بسات مال لائی دلہن کو تھام کے بانو خوش قصال مٹی بھری تھی مانگ میں کبرا کا تھا یہ حال میلی سی چادر اوڑے ہوئے کھولے سر میلی سی چادر اوڑے ہوئے کھولے سر دکھلا کے زخم سب جسد پاش پاش کے بٹھلا دیا عروس کو پہلو ملا بٹھلا دیا عروس کو پہلو ملا سایہ بتاؤ کیا میں اسیر مان کہوں بے کس کہوں غریب کہوں بے وطن کہوں مجروح کہوں کہ آپ کو یا بے کفن کہوں دولہا کہوں کہ آپ کو ابن حسن دولہا کہوں کہ آپ کو ابن حسن کیا کہہ کے روں کوئی بتاتا نہیں مجھے تازہ دلہن بہن بھی آتا نہیں تازہ دلہن بہن بھی آتا نہیں فضا نے لا کے اتنے میں رنسال رکھ دیا دولہا کی ماں نے ہاتھ میں اس کو اٹھا لیا اور بولی اس کو پہنو یہ قلت ہے بیووں کا کبرا نے سر کو پیٹ کے اور روکے کبرا نے سر کو پیٹ کے اور روکے یہ کہا اب کیوں لباس رانوں کا مجھ کو پہناتے ہیں دولہا بنا کے کیا کوئی بیوہ بنا دلہن بنا کے کیا کوئی بیوہ بنا دلہن بنا کے کیا کوئی بیوہ بناتے ہو
As always, may I request you all to please move as much you can forward, please. Both in the ladies and men. Try to move as much forward as possible, please. Jazakallah, Jazakallah. You know, in next 10-15 minutes, this hall will be bubbling, so we don't want to cause inconvenience in the middle of the majlis. That's why we're requesting you, please move as much forward as possible at the initial stage. Allahumma sallallahu. The program at Al-Noor, inshallah, will continue till the 12th of Muharram. And all these majalises will be recited by our eminent scholar, Hujjatul Muslimeen, Sheikh Hassan Roushandel. The program starts 7:30 sharp with Surah Yasin or Tilawat al-Quran, followed by Marsiya, and then Maulana will start the lecture at 8 o'clock. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the sponsors and all those generous donors who have been very kind enough of donating so many. Since the start of this Muharram, they have been very kind, generously donating for Al-Noor Center. And all these programs are basically happening because of their humble contribution. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. And you can, again, all those who have come today and would like to contribute, there is a contactless card both in the ladies' side as well as the men's side. While coming in or going back, you can just swap a card and donate the amount as per your wish. May Allah reward you all aptly and amply for all your humble services, inshallah. There will be a program for Ashura Day here at Al-Noor Center also. Amal Ashura will begin at 12 o'clock afternoon, 12 noon, followed by Namaz Zohrain. And inshallah, there will be a very short majlis of Masaib. And thereafter, there will be second majlis at around 5 o'clock. Time to be confirmed later. Why? Because knowing the Maghrib time, we might delay to 6 o'clock. Fakha Shikni majlis. So I'll confirm the time tomorrow as well. But it will be around after Asr time, 5 to 6. And then you'll be having a Fakha Shikni done here at Al-Noor Center. And then, inshallah, Namaz Maghribain, followed by Sham-e Ghariba, Majlis Sham-e Ghariba. Kindly spread the word across, and you may all tell your family and friends to please attend all these majalises on time, inshallah. Can I request you all to please recite the Surah Fatiha for all the marhumeen, especially for the marhumeen of tonight's sponsor, Brother Irshad and Brother Farooq, and all the marhumeens of there, as well as your marhumeen and marhumeen of Millat-e Jafriya. May I now request Sheikh Hassan Roushandel to please come onto the member to begin this lecture for tonight. But Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, ba'awaz buland salawat.
शहद से ज्यादा शीरी मौत जिसकी निगाहों में है वो कास्ती में नौशाह को माँ ने कितनी उम्मीदों से पाला है। इमाम हसन की निशानी करबल में घोड़ों की टापों से पामाल हुई है। अरे इमाम हसन की निशानी करबल में घोड़ों की टापों से पामाल हुई है। अरे हुसैन ने भतीजे की लाश के टुकड़े किस तरह से समेटे हैं। बरज़मत जनाब कासिम अलैहिस्सलाम बावाज़े बुलंद सलवात।
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد والثناء لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنام حبيب إله العالمين رسول الله أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين الهداة المهديين ولا سيما على بقية الله في العالمين صاحب العصر والزمان روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope and pray, insha'Allah, you are all, every single one of you, insha'Allah, are doing well. And I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the tawfiq of benefiting from these nights as we are approaching the 10th of Muharram, insha'Allah, connecting with the great personalities and figures of Muharram and Ashura, learning from the lessons, implementing them in our lives, connecting with them, insha'Allah, with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When we look at what happened in Karbala, it is wrong to think that Imam Hussein alayhi salam was killed by a group of people who didn't know anything about God or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is also wrong to think that Imam Hussein alayhi salam was killed by a group of people who didn't know anything about Amir al-Mu'mineen and Imam Hassan and were not affiliated with them. Maybe if we speak about the people of Sham, of Syria, where Muawiyah used to rule, we would understand that yes, there was a belief in God, there was a belief in the Prophet, but there was enmity towards Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. But when we look at the people of Kufa, that wasn't the case. When Imam Hussein's letter was read to the people of Kufa, many of them were shedding tears out of love that they had for the Imam and out of the connection they had with the cause, with the message. So the same people who were connected with the story eventually became people who were seeking proximity to God through not assisting their Imam but fighting against him. وَكُلٌّ يَتَقَرَّبُونَ إِلَى اللَّهِ بِدَمِهِ. That's the line. Every single one of them was seeking proximity to God by basically shedding the blood of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. It's very interesting to see how that can happen. They knew about God, they knew about the Prophet, they knew about Imam Ali alayhi salam. But how is it that they start seeking refuge to Allah, seeking proximity to Allah by killing the Imam? Their hearts was with the Imam. It is narrated that one of the poets, famous poets, when he saw the caravan of Imam Hussein, the group of Imam Hussein going towards Kufa on the way, well, they stopped in Karbala. When he was asked, okay, what's going on there? He said, قُلُوبُهُمْ مَعَكَ. Their hearts are with you. وَسُيُوفُهُمْ عَلَيْكَ. But their swords are against you. It's not an easy thing to grasp. Like, how can your heart be with someone but your sword be against them? Then at the same time, how can you seek proximity to God by killing the person who your heart is with? So it's not a very easy equation. Probably some of them, their hearts was there, but their swords were against. Some of them, no, they were actually seeking proximity to God. But what's very important is that this happened and it resulted in Imam Hussein alayhi salam being martyred But one thing we can say about these people is that they were religious. That's for sure. But religiosity without wisdom and knowledge. And we have narrations about how people who are religious, they follow the rituals, so they, in their appearance, they are fasting, they are praying, they're doing everything, but how these people can be a source of not positive influence, but a negative influence, and often even result in killing their imam while seeking proximity to God. So it's very possible. Let's not think of it to be something very far-fetched, impossible, how can that happen? No, it can happen. And I sometimes see some people complain about how, Muslims are this and that, and sometimes you find a Muslim person who prays, but then, for example, they cheat, or they deceive, they steal people's money, or, they abuse. So many of these issues, their akhlaq is bad. And I see this individual then becomes put off of religion in total. And my response usually is that the moment I see them frustrated, I say, well, welcome to the team. That has been the struggle since after the Prophet. Our imams were not fighting pagans. Our imams were not killed by pagans. They were killed by people often praying more than them, often performing more mustahab fasts than them. So if you're frustrated with a group of people who are on the deen supposedly, or on surface level, well, welcome to the team. That has been the struggle for many years now. But what is the response? What's the solution? Is the solution to let go? Well, the imams, by resisting, they showed us that no. Sometimes the solution is to fight back with sword. Sometimes the solution is to be a bit more quiet, in taqiyya mode perhaps, but still push your narrative through dua maybe. But push your narrative through knowledge maybe. But constantly attempt at changing yourself and the people in order for us to be able to get back to the time of the Prophet and be able to implement them without having to go through all these difficulties. If only people were to bring iman and act upon it, barakat of Allah, the blessings of Allah will descend. Like the verse in the Quran says, وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْقُرَىٰ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا لَفَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَرَكَاتٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. If only they had brought iman and had taqwa, God wariness, God consciousness in their life, not just in their salat, but throughout their life, لَفَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَرَكَاتٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. We would have opened blessings from heavens and earth for them. But it didn't happen. And the imams tried to push this through many different methods in order to help insan, this human being, to let go of the desires, let go of the deception, let go of all of those things that are limiting their spirituality, limiting their connection with God, and be able to free them. Like the verse says, يَضَعُ عَنْهُمْ إِسْرَهُمْ وَالْأَغْلَالَ الَّتِي كَانَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ. He wants to lift the burdens from their shoulders and the chains that they're stuck in. Just open the chains, be free. That was the attempt, inshallah. So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us learn from these messages and hopefully be in the right direction and grow towards that being that the imams want us to become, inshallah, with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In the previous nights we were talking about the system of God and how it's very important for us to learn what this system is like. Sunnat Allah, and this sunnah does not change. The prophets went through trials, tribulations, tests, and God taught them about the system that they need to live in and the laws that they need to abide by in this world. He didn't twist, he didn't bend the laws. No, he trained them in a way to navigate through them. One of the very important laws we're going to talk about today is the concept of dua, of praying and asking Allah for favors. Now, before we talk about doing dua and asking Allah for favors, there's a very important point I need to mention. And that is, whatever your perception of God is, that turns into reality for you. That becomes your reality. Some people think that no matter what I think of God and how God is going to treat me, God is independent of that and He does His own thing. So if I moan and if I say God is so bad and God is bringing negativity into my life and why is God doing this to me, God doesn't love me, God doesn't care about me, God has forgotten me, they think that by saying this, God is going to feel sorry for them and say, no, don't say that. And He's going to show a bit more of, compassion and love towards them. But the reality is that we have narrations which are a bit scary that tell us that whatever your perception, your understanding of God is, that becomes your reality. It doesn't say that God necessarily treats you that way, but it says that if that is your perception, you won't be able to see anything differently in this world. Even if Allah is blessing you with so much abundance of love, of compassion, if that is your perception of Him, you won't be able to see it. What is that narration? It's a narration, it's a Qudsi narration, meaning that it's narrated from God to have said Himself. That أنا عند ظن عبدي بي إن خيرا فخير وإن شرا فشر. Where am I? I'm with the assumption of my servant, of my creation, of me. That's where I am. If it's a good assumption, then I am good. If it is bad, if it's a negative assumption, then I am that bad. Now, I'm very sorry to say that by you moaning and by you saying, oh God, you're so bad, why are you doing this to me? I'm so miserable, I'm so unlucky, I'm always like this, this always happens to me. By you saying this, I'm sorry, but nothing is going to feel sorry for you. No system, the system is not created in a way to pay attention or pay more attention to the one who complains and moans. It's the opposite. When He says, if you correct your assumption of me, meaning that if there's anything that's needed to be done, it's in you. It's not in this system. This universe is intelligent, and this universe is created in a perfect manner. There's nothing in this world that could be better. But there's one thing that can be better, and that is you and what's happening inside your head. That can be better. That's why in another verse, He says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. God doesn't change the affairs of any nation. It's not Him that changes it arbitrarily. No, but He's created a system in which if you want change, you need to start the change from inside yourself. حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Unless you make a change inside you. If you are complaining about how bad God treats you in your life, instead of continuing to complain about that, start thinking about what your perception of God is and how by rectifying that and working on that, you can easily change your reality. And the same thing that at one point was a message to you that God is bad towards you, you look at the same thing, but you can understand something very different from it. This is the reality. Or there are other verses that clarify that say that Allah does not take away the ni'mah. So this is a bit more specific. The blessing that He has given someone, He doesn't take it away unless ذلك بأن الله لم يكن مغيرا نعمة أنعمها على قوم. Allah is not the one who changes the ni'mah that He has blessed people with حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم, unless they themselves, due to some change that's happening inside them, they become the cause of that ni'mah going away. So whatever it is, it's inside you. وَأَن لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. Whatever you receive, you won't receive anything other than what you have done sa'i for, you've worked for. If your entire life you haven't worked on your perception of God and you've sufficed with what has been taught to you, then what do you expect other than seeing God in a very negative lens? Because what's taught often is a very limited understanding, and we're always, throughout our lives, in constant growth of our perception and understanding of God. Understanding of God, it's like the iOS that's released every year. Every year you need to have the new iOS. It's like 15.5.1, 15.5.2. If I come to you and I speak to you and I say, okay, so what do you think of God? And then next year we speak to each other and I say, okay, so what has your experience with God been in your life? And you say the exact same thing. That means you're going through stagnancy. That means you're not growing. Because God is unlimited and you are limited. Whatever your perception of God is, at the end of the day, it's the limited being trying to understand the unlimited. So you're never right. You never get the whole picture. So you're always in a process of growth. And that's beautiful, because you can never say that I got it completely, but you can always say that there is something more for me to understand and there is something more for me to connect with. Please recite the salawat. Okay, so now having said that, when we speak about the concept of dua, initially what comes to mind in many of us is that, why is it that I do dua and I ask Allah for a favor, but I don't receive it? And many people, often this results in resentment, in just not doing dua anymore. I'm fed up. Why should I ask God anyway when He doesn't even give it to me? Why should I? What's wrong with this understanding? The first thing which is wrong is that when you think of God, do you think there is any reason why God wouldn't give you anything, and that reason is due to Himself? We're not allowed to think that way. Why? Because Allah, in theology they teach us that He is the fayyadun ala al-itlaq, meaning He's the one who gives absolutely, with no condition. You know what is like an analogy? This is a good analogy. If God's mercy and giving is like rain, when it's raining, it's constantly pouring, not just raining. It's constantly pouring. There's nothing that stops God from pouring the rain. But can I say that I am receiving the same amount as someone else? No, because maybe I'm sitting here and I'm not outside. It's not God's rain which is not pouring, which is not raining. No, that is raining. It's always raining. But it is due to my capacity, which sometimes it's in my hands and sometimes it's not. I'm bound to this material life. Obviously, I need to grow. I can't grow overnight, so there's a level of growth I need to go through. And that defines my capacity and my limit of receiving, of course. But what's important is for us to start with the notion that God doesn't prevent when something has the capacity to receive. If you say this, this means you're saying that God is not just. God gives to anything that has the capacity to receive. When we say that, then when we come to the concept of dua, the very important question is this. Okay, so if that's what you're saying, why does God himself in the Quran say that if you ask me, I will give you whatever you ask me? If what you're saying is true, then he should have put a condition on it. The response to this, it's not my response, it's Allama Tabatabayi's response in Tafsir of Al-Mizan. When he is discussing those verses, he says that these verses that you're referring to, that Allah says, I will respond to the one who asks me for any favor. You think that is mentioned absolutely. You think that that doesn't have any condition. But in that verse, if you pay complete attention, you realize that there are two very important conditions. What is the verse? Let's start with the verse, then we'll mention the conditions. One of the famous verses is وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. And when my servants ask you of me, I am close. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. I respond to the request, to the supplication of the one who requests from me. When they request, إِذَا دَعَانِي, when they do dua, and the dua is directed at me. Allama Tabatabai says, initially when you read the verse, it seems like it's saying, when they do dua to me, and you wouldn't think twice about it. But he says there are two conditions here, that the majority of the du'as that people do not meet these two conditions. And now, after these nights of lectures, that we understand that this world is created and there's a system, and God teaches us, rather than bending the laws for us, he teaches us about the laws that he's created and wants us to abide by them. Now we realize that when Allama Tabatabai says that there are two conditions, he's talking about how this universe is created. He's talking about the laws. You follow the laws, you will arrive at your destination. You don't follow, complain and moan about it for your entire life. Trust me, nothing is going to change in your life whatsoever. For the positive, things will change for the negative. Right? It will happen. I'm smiling, but it's sad. And I'm not saying this with pride, na'udhu billah. I'm saying this with a sense of care. I usually laugh and smile even at moments of sadness. It's funny because sometimes when I was with my family and I was explaining to them how I had traveled to Iran and one of our family members died during that time. I was explaining it and I was laughing. It was my normal reaction. It's not that I'm happy. It's just I smile often when I speak. And they were like, why are you laughing? Why are you smiling? So I'm saying this to say that sometimes here when I am smiling and I'm laughing, it doesn't mean that I'm happy with what I'm saying necessarily. It's just a natural reaction of mine. So when we're speaking about this condition, the system, what are the two conditions? He says the two conditions that God mentions is that number one, it needs to be a dua. And number two, it needs to be only directed at Him. These two conditions are very important. Often you make a request, but that doesn't fit the conditions and the criteria of a dua. Often you make a request, but your heart is not directed only at God. What gives ultimate power to a human being is when they can do a dua and direct it at God only. If they manage to have these two conditions together, the result, the response is definite. There's no doubt about that. So instead of sitting down and thinking, why is my dua not accepted? Oh God, I asked you, but you didn't give me. A wise student of this world would sit down and think, which part of this attempt did I not do correctly? Or which part of it do I need to work on more? Because at the end of the day, we're not born with the tools to direct everything at God only, and we are definitely not born with the tools to know what a real dua is. So we just throw it like that. Oh Allah, give me this. Well, you shouldn't expect much from that. I'm not saying it's not going to happen whatsoever, but I'm saying that the guaranteed istijaba in the Quran, which often people use and they argue saying that the Quran says there is a guaranteed istijaba. Where is it? I asked Allah and He didn't give me. Allama Tabatabai says no, there is no such thing as a guaranteed istijaba just like that. There is guaranteed istijaba, but when you do fulfill the two very important conditions. Okay? Now, we can speak about the conditions, but we don't have much time, so I want to mention something more important. The conditions where we said dua, it needs to be a dua, and it needs to be only directed at God. But what's very important is that when you look at the verses in the Quran, you do realize that some of the verses push the notion that insan needs to change things themselves. So this is the argument I'm putting forward. Verses talk about insan needs to do it himself and herself. It's all up to you. There are things you need to learn. The verses we said, لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. God doesn't change anything unless you change yourself. Then when we look at the verses of dua, we realize that dua is understood in those lines. Dua is understood in like you need to learn how to do it. And do you know, have you ever heard, in our culture this exists, that there are some people, they say that person is mustajabud da'wah. That person, whenever they do dua, it's just they get it, it happens. Have you seen those people? Have you ever come across someone whose du'as are usually answered? And sometimes people go to them and say, hey, by the way, can you just do a dua for me, please? Why do they do that? Because they think that this person, if they do a dua, it actually works. But no one knows why. And often people may think that it's favoritism. It's like God favoring him over others or her over others. But I'm like, okay, God, you want to do that? That's fine. I'm going to go to him. I'm going to ask him to do a dua. But really, like truly inside your heart, just like, God, why are you doing this? Why are you favoring that person over me? Why is it that I do dua, it's not accepted, but why is it that that person does it, it is accepted? Why would someone think this way? Because they still haven't learned that there's nothing in this world that happens without a reason, and everything is intelligently designed. If that person's dua is accepted, it may very well be that they've trained the muscle so much that they can detach themselves from the means in this world and see God through everything. And when they do the dua, that dua hits the target because it has the condition of detachment from everything and directed at God. That takes practice. If you ask me right now, I wouldn't, because my whole life I've been used to seeing all the means as independent sources of love, of provision, of security. I've seen all the means. The person who provides me security, the person who provides me love, the person who provides me my finances. I see them, but I don't see through them. I'm not used to seeing through them. I'm not used to seeing how God is helping me through that person, and I'm not used to practicing detachment. When I'm not used to that, then when I do a dua, it takes a lot of time, energy, concentration perhaps, for me to be able to detach myself from everything. And it doesn't happen very often in my life. Maybe once or twice in a lifetime. Think about it. There may have been a time that you actually did a dua and you got what you wanted. Many people have that experience. It doesn't happen often. We all know that. It's not that whenever I do a dua, I get that exact thing. But there had been times, once or twice maybe in my life, that I truly asked for something and I got it. I'm not saying it dropped from the sky, but I know it was mustajab. It happened. The means, everything in a way aligned in the universe for me to be able to get to that destination. It took time, but it happened. But often our du'as, they don't happen. Nothing aligns, right? So you may have had that experience. Think about it. It very well could be that in that moment, you truly became hopeless in everyone else. It very well may be. And in that moment, the dua that you did was a true dua, meaning that when you're asking for something, you know exactly what you're asking for it and you're asking for it. Often we say, oh Allah, give me this. And the moment it happens, like, oh my God, that's not what I wanted. This shows that you don't have enough understanding. And when you don't have enough understanding and ma'rifah of what you want, you just say, oh Allah, yeah, I really want this. But do you really want this? The sign of a person who really wants something, one of the signs is that they know exactly what it is and how it impacts their life, and they study it very well. Not just like, I'm just throwing something. Yeah, I really want this to happen. Yeah, I really want that to happen. But do you really want that to happen? Maybe, but maybe not. So it needs to turn into your reality. It needs to turn into something you really and truly want. So your brain releases the energy. If it does that, and then you connect it with the ultimate source, and you shoot the arrow, then it can hit the target. And this is a skill. Please recite the salawat. May I please request the brothers and sisters to please stand up and come one step forward, please, with the salawat ala Muhammad wa alayhi. One point I will mention, then I will go into the final part of my lecture. That one point is, I need to put this in, and that is, I am very well aware that there might be people out there who would come back to me and say, but I was in a very difficult moment in my life, and I did dua, and I was very desperate, and it was only at God. And I really wanted that, but it didn't happen. I lost a loved one, right? I agree with that. So whatever I'm saying here, I'm talking about a system. And this system is very intelligent. And I'm not allowed to believe that God doesn't give, okay, because he doesn't want to. But there can very well be so many things involved beyond what you may see on surface level about yourself. So the conditions have met, but there could be so many things that are barriers to a dua. There could be so many things. Sometimes maybe one dua contradicts another dua. You're asking for something in your life, and as a result of that, that test needs to come to you. And then you're asking for another dua, that's not going to work because your growth maybe depends on that. And that is also your request. But it's a contribution towards you being able to get there, so it wouldn't really happen. So it's a system, it's very intelligent. You wouldn't be able to know every single detail about it, of course. But learning some of these tools, I think, would be very beneficial. I'm not claiming that I know all of them, and I'm definitely not claiming that whatever I say here is the ultimate opinion, the final, word. I haven't come up with anything significant. These are some of the views I'm sharing here. There could be different opinions and different approaches. I welcome everyone to go and look them up as well, and if they sound more convincing, of course go with that, right? That would be your responsibility and your reality, basically. Please recite the salawat. I was going to mention where a prophet of God, Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam, shows that by him understanding Allah and understanding the etiquettes of doing dua, how he differs with the disciples that were good people, but they were not trained. So therefore, they shoot the arrow, but it doesn't hit the target, and they are condemned. But I don't know if I have the time because I have to do musibah as well. So I'll probably skip that, and maybe I'll mention it tomorrow in the beginning of the lecture, inshallah. Please recite the salawat. Tonight, inshallah, we are going to remember Qasim ibn al-Hassan alayhi salam. Qasim, the son of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, was with Imam Hussein in Karbala. Sallallahu alayka ya madloom ya Aba Abdullah. On the night of Ashura, Imam al-Hussein gathered all of his companions. In a few moments, he told the companions, in a few moments, I'll turn out the lights. You can all leave. These people you see here, tomorrow, they're going to kill all of you. But you don't need to stay here. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam says to them, they are here because of me. You guys can leave. They only want me. If you guys want to leave, they'll allow you to leave. Imam says to them, Habib, leave me. Zuhair, leave me. Abbas, leave me. The enemies only want me. The enemy only wants Hussein. The Imam turned out the lights, but no one left from the companions. He asked them, "Why didn't you guys leave?" They responded, "Even if we are killed many times and burnt and brought back to life, then burnt again, then brought back to life, of course we are not going to leave your side." The Imam began to tell them, "You guys are the best of the companions that one can ever have. But tomorrow each of you will become shaheed." However, there's a young boy here sitting down thinking, is my uncle also talking about me? Or he's saying this to the rest of the companions? They're elders, they're strong, they're warriors, so they're going to be killed. But am I also going to be killed? So he couldn't hold it inside him. He calls out his uncle, "Ya Ammah, will I also receive the rank of Shahada?" Imam Hussein asks him, "O Qasim, how do you see Shahada?" He immediately responds, "Ahla min al-asal." I see it, my uncle, sweeter than honey. When Imam Hussein sees the growth in him, imagine how he feels. But on the day of Ashura, when the companions went one by one, the time came for the Ahlul Bayt. At one point, this young boy Qasim, in his early teens, he comes forth to the Imam. He comes forth to ask permission. Am I allowed to go out and fight in the battlefield? Ya Ammah, oh my uncle. It is said that at this moment Imam Hussein اعتنق القاسم وبكيا حتى غشي عليهما. He came close, he held Qasim in his arm, he hugged him, and they were both crying. La ilaha illallah. The Imam refused the first time. He said, "How can I let you go, Qasim? You're the trust of my brother Hassan." However, the young boy began to kiss the hands of his uncle. "Ya Aba Abdullah, please let me go to the battlefield. You told me that I'm going to become shaheed. If not now, then when? Please let me defend your family. Please let me defend the Ahlul Bayt." This young boy came to the battlefield. The enemies saw that the armor was too big for him. He was not like any other warrior. He was young. His body was smaller. He was just a young boy, but was shining like the moon, reading poetry. What was he saying? A very powerful poetry. Amiri Husaynun wa ni'mal amir. Amiri Husaynun wa ni'mal amir. He sent a number of those people to hellfire, but one of the enemies in particular who had hatred of Imam al-Hassan, he said that by Allah, again you see they swear by Allah, subhanAllah. He says that by Allah, I will kill this young boy. I'll make his father regret this. I will make his uncle Hussein regret this. He came from behind and he struck the neck of Qasim. He falls on the ground. When he falls on the ground, he calls out, Ya Amma, Ya Amma, adrakni. He says, oh uncle, please save me. Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He rushed towards Qasim. When the enemies saw that they feared, the attack of the Imam, they began to run away. And it was at that time that they trampled on the body of Qasim with their horses. When Imam al-Hussein reached Qasim, he saw that the young boy was on the ground, kicking his legs on the ground out of pain. The Imam saw how they killed Qasim. He brought back the body of his young nephew, and he placed Qasim besides his own son Ali al-Akbar. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين ونحن نقول الحمد لله رب العالمين صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
ويلا حسين وويلا 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 حسين कैदी बनकर पाबंद रसर लाशों से जो गुजरे ले हराऊं हर बीबी अपने प्यारों पे होती थी विदा करके माताओं एक बीबी फातिमा बेते हसन पामाल बदर कासिम की बहन किसी की जान से रुखसत न हुई किसी की जान से रुखसत न हुई टुकड़ों में जो था भाई का बदन कभी इस टुकड़े पर है कासिम कभी टुकड़े पर है कासिम हाय कासिम है कासिम है कासिम है कासिम है कासिम ہے قاسم ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم ہے کبھی صحرا دیکھ کے روتی تھی کبھی غش کھا کے گر جاتی تھی کبھی صحرا دیکھ کے روتی تھی کبھی غش کھا کے گر جاتی تھی پامال ہوا تھا بھائی جہاں پامال ہوا تھا بھائی جہاں اس خون پہ گر کر ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم کس شان سے تو دولہا تھے بنے کس شان سے تھی بارات چلی کس شان سے تو دولہا تھے بنے کس شان سے تھی بارات چلی بیٹھی رہی دلہن حجرے میں بیٹھی رہی دلہن حجرے میں آئے نہ پلٹ کر ہے قاسم ہے قاسم قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم فروان کہا بیٹا قاسم کہہ دینا دادی زہرا سے فروان کہا بیٹا قاسم کہہ دینا دادی زہرا سے غربت کی کمائی ٹکڑوں میں غربت کی کمائی ٹکڑوں میں دیتی ہے سجا کر ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے ہر سات محرم کو مہندی تیری یاد میں قاسم اٹھتی ہے ہر سات محرم کو مہندی تیری یاد میں قاسم اٹھتی ہے دولہا دولہا قاسم دولہا 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 ہوتا ہے لبوں پر ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم
وقاسم وويلا وقاسم وويلا وغربة وويلا ومظلوم وويلا وغربة وويلا ومظلوم وويلا 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 يا علي يا إمام صل على محمد
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللہ